4 years ago, if you looked at Santa Ana Unified, one of the largest school districts in California, we had about 8,000 electronic devices across the district. And over the past 4 years, we've really invested a lot of resources into building our digital and technological infrastructure. And so we've gone from 8,000 devices to over 50,000 devices, virtually one-to-one across the district. We've invested a lot in our infrastructure in terms of wireless arrays and broadening our network and really bringing the infrastructure from a digital standpoint into the 21st century as a district. And I think that from a strategic standpoint, from a managerial standpoint, has been one of the strategies to facilitate other shifts and other transformations. So one thing that's interesting about the approach we've had in Santa Ana is that we didn't necessarily go in saying one-to-one computing is our strategy and it's going to revolutionize the way kids learn in every classroom. Everybody's going to do it. Everybody's going to do this mandatory training. It was much more organic, where initially we identified early adopters, moved resources and devices towards those teachers that wanted to experiment, that wanted to learn new practices. We made lots of professional learning opportunities available on the back end, and really just kind of flooded the system with accessibility and with the devices to do the different work, and tried to allow some of the demand for the professional learning to develop and move organically across our professional teaching staff. And so fast forward 3 years later, and I think you really see a system that is prime, and in some pockets, whether that's a school, a grade level, or individual classrooms, you have real transformations happening in terms of the integration of the technology, in terms of, blended hybrid models, all kinds of different things happening.
I think that one of the things too is that teachers and other staff have been able to personalize their own learning to ensure that as they're rolling it out and supporting their students, they're actually able to process what it means to apply it to their practices and really learn with the students. And there's been that space where it's okay to learn the process together. So I think not only has it been the technology, but as Daniel stated, it's been the support and the space to allow that learning to happen.
I think there's been a lot of kind of structural pieces to the strategy. Our ed tech department renamed itself, Learning Innovation with Technology. They kind of staffed up and were providing a lot more professional development and professional learning and coordinating the rollout of all these devices and different pieces. So that certainly happened. We saw the birth of a new department, the 21st Century Learning Department, and the role of that department was really working as a liaison, creating an open campus or a virtual school across the district. And we also had tech reps from each school that kind of would come together to create almost like a governing body, in a sense, where everybody's working together, collaborating together. Each school has some say in the district's broad technology transformation plan. And then now we're into year 4 and 5 of this transformation, and so some of those structures have already shifted. So we have what we call our tech coaches. And these are teachers who have actually come out of the classroom, and they're assigned to a number of different schools and help teachers work with that integration piece. And we see that across the school site. So it's really moved from a kind of centralized department approach to where we've shifted those resources now to these school-embedded coaches that are working with schools, working with individual teachers, trying to get traction around these different initiatives that are part of our transformation program.
I think we have different models that have been phenomenal. Not only are we addressing the needs of our high-achieving students, and Daniel will probably go into that, but also students who were normally marginalized, and even in our mainstream classes. So we've been able to support in all different spaces for students to grow, not only just the untethered digital alternative, but in different, brick and mortar places. You want to talk about like Advances and Chavez?
We have curated kind of a broad set of resources that teachers can use in their classrooms. So there's no one set not even 2 or 3 set programs that we say, okay, everybody's using these programs. So teachers have a lot of options in terms of different programs that they can use to supplement what's happening in the classroom. So we see programs like Lexia, ST Math, Khan Academy, No Red Ink, FEV Tutor, Myon, like a suite of these different tools. We also have contracts with Canvas as our learning management system. We also use Google Classroom. And so we have teachers that really build a lot of their blended pieces in Canvas. We have other teachers that prefer to use Google Classroom. And we're somewhat agnostic on that. Like we want to support whichever system the teacher is looking at. We also, through this Open Campus initiative and other related initiatives, teachers also have the opportunity to use whole course content providing software that really does start to untether the time in the learning. The Access for All movement in general was originally kind of conceptualized as we want to democratize access in our district. And I think it's important to understand that Santa Ana, it's over 90% of our kids are living in poverty, despite living in one of the wealthiest counties in the country. We have about 60% English learners, 96% of our students are Hispanic. And so part of the theory of action from a leadership standpoint around the initiative was we need to democratize access for kids to learn. And so we do see a lot of kids using their devices in order to move their learning, accelerate their learning when they're at home, when they're away from the school site. So we see that. We also have agreements with a number of organizations that allow us to give kids hotspots. So we're part of the Sprint 1 million program where they're giving hotspots to 1 million kids across the country. And I think about 4,000 of those hotspots are within our district. We've been checking them out through libraries, really to try to make connectivity ubiquitous across the city for all of our kids. With that said, we also have a few pilot special programs where we're really trying to think about how do we rethink the way we conceptualize learning. We were one of 18 schools across the country that was awarded an XQ grant. So we received $2.5 million to support our Circulos program. And what Circulos does is it's basically a high school with no central campus. And the idea is that we want our kids to have access to the wealth, the resources, all the social capital that's embedded within Orange County, California. And in order to do that, we really want to break down the physical barriers, the physical walls that separate our kids from those opportunities. And so the way that we're facilitating getting them out of the classroom, that's, there's certain logistical challenges to doing that, but that's kind of the easy piece. The difficult piece is how do we deliver instruction? How do we ensure that our kids have access to a university approved set of coursework? And so we have kids who are working on A through G approved courses through an online platform, almost like elementary school at the high school level, where you have a teacher who's kind of the lead facilitator for a cohort of students, working with them as they make progress through a variety of content specialty areas. But at the same time, those kids are leaving campus 3-4 days a week to go learn, to engage in some really, some really authentic place-based learning opportunities. For example, we have students at Chavez High School. It's actually one of our alternative schools. So we have 23 kids in a class. They come in, they start their day with a traditional biology class with labs. They spend the next hour in a classroom where they're managing 2 to 3 different courses through an online learning platform. They're currently using Apex Learning, but they're working through that curriculum, and the teacher in the room is helping them move through all these different content areas. And then 2 days a week, those kids actually connect with the content area teacher to get support in the subjects that they're struggling with, be that math, science, whatever that may be. And then the second part of the day, those kids are basically leaving on a regular basis to go interact, to learn. Right now, for example, they're working on a project that's looking about how do we use the public transportation system to expand our social network, how do we build relationships, and really kind of teaching the kids those interactive networking skills that they need to be successful in our more dynamic economy. And so in essence, those kids are basically going on a field trip 3 to 4 days a week. And so in order to facilitate the time that we need for that, we also have them engaged in this online learning, kind of flexible learning environment. And we're in the very early stages with this. So I don't want it to sound like, oh, we figured it out, it's all working. Like, there's a lot of logistics to kind of moving things through this way. But we see a lot of promise, and the kids are super excited. They just, it's like school's something totally different from them now. And so they're really excited about it. So XQ as an organization, they've done a lot of work to try to build us into a professional learning community, a networked learning community across all of our sites. So we have regular convenings where we come together, we share what we're working on, share the difficulties. XQ 2 years ago, they launched a nationwide school design competition. About 2,500 teams across the country submitted high school redesign applications. Of that group, there's 18 that have been selected as kind of representative incubator schools. They call them XQ Super Schools. And the idea is like, let's create these environments where we're really going to rethink the high school experience. They're based out of Oakland, but their schools, those 18 schools, there's 4 in California, and then the rest are kind of spread all over the country. And so I think that when you look at their kind of portfolio of schools that are part of that movement, you see a few different structural patterns across the schools. So you see schools like ours that are really trying to get kids outside of what we typically think of as a classroom environment, trying to rethink high school in that way. There's others that are kind of doubling down on the classroom environment, saying, okay, we just need the classroom environment to be exceptional, and this is the way that we're going to do it. There's others that are just kind of an amalgam of both of those things. And so you really see kind of school reformers and designers thinking differently about what the different possibilities are. And so that's been an exciting thing to come together. And some of them are based on partnerships with community organizations. We're very much in that vein. Others have, campuses on college that are located on a college campus, and that's kind of where some of their innovation is coming from. So you see a real kind of diversity of approaches within that cohort of schools. I think that one of the major transformations that we've seen is a move from whole group instruction towards more small group instruction and rotations within classrooms. So we still have classrooms where direct instruction's happening, and you have whole group instruction. But in many more classrooms than we saw previously, we see teachers using the technology to facilitate their ability to manage small group instruction. Certainly at the elementary schools have always had some culture of centers, of rotations, of things like that. And historically, you see almost none of that at the high school level. And so now you can walk into our secondary schools, and in a lot of those classrooms, you see teachers using rotations, teachers using small group instruction, teachers who are allowing certain groups of students in the class to accelerate forward. They're working with a group of kids that maybe needs additional intervention. So we do see a transformation in terms of those pieces.
And I think even to the point of art-dependent charter, which ideally demonstrates that, and you'll be talking more about that, I'm sure, but that is a model in which students are learning and growing based on their competency, not on the numbers of hours that they're in the classroom, and they move fluidly according to their competency within the classroom and within the grades. And I think you can speak to that more clearly, because that's a very good model of what we're doing district-wide.
Yeah, so we opened a district-dependent charter school 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, Advanced Learning Academy. Advanced Learning Academy is our district-dependent charter school, so it's in its third year of operation this year, and the focus really has been a true competency-based learning environment. When we opened Advanced Learning Academy, we opened it with the vision of a true personalized environment where every kid is moving at their own pace, where every kid has some choice and voice around their pathway. So it's not just the pace at which they're learning, but the content of what they're learning, that really trying to give kids some of that ownership. And I think that this may be a little bit disappointing to hear, but I think that in actually doing the work of working with kids, we've especially at the younger ages, we've moved more towards thinking about competency-based learning in terms of groups. So that the kids are having those rich opportunities for academic discourse, for social dialogue, for supporting each other in project-based learning. It's interesting. We went up to Lindsay Unified a few months ago, which is, for those familiar with Lindsay, it's one of the most well-known districts in terms of moving away from grades and traditional structures towards competency-based learning. And they kind of described how a decade ago when they started, they also had this idea of every kid moving at their own pace, facilitated by adaptive learning systems. And they also had kind of come to this conclusion, we're going to focus on teacher pace or faster. So there's a lot of students that are ready to accelerate forward, and they do accelerate them forward, and they really do have this personalized pathway. There's also a lot of students who they defer to the teacher in terms of setting that pace. And so when you take the teacher relationship away, some students go slower than what you want, or they're not meeting a full year of learning standards in a year. And so they've really started to think about this idea of teacher pace or faster. At the high school level, we do have a number of environments where we have classrooms where there's 25 kids in the room and they're all working on different courses, or they're all working on, 4 or 5 common courses, but they're all at different places in that space. And you have a facilitator, a teacher in that room who's working with the kids to help them move all at the different paces. So we do have some of that kind of more the way we think more about a flex classroom environment, where it's really is every student moving at their own pace. So we do have those type of environments, and the XQ Super School, the Circulos concept that we discussed previously, is really using that concept to think about its flexible learning environment.
And also the partnerships with the colleges. I think one of the things that we're also doing to help navigate this independent or individualized learning is the partnerships and alignments with the colleges, so that as students are taking classes and meeting their A through G high school requirements, they're also able to start getting college credit.
Yeah. That's been huge. In 5 years ago, we had one early college program, and basically by early college or dual enrollment, where kids are taking high school and college courses simultaneously, now we have it in 5 different schools. And part of the reason is because kids really connect with this idea of I'm getting college credit now, and I can create a schedule that really matches what I'm interested in. And so we have a lot of kids that will go to the community college in the evenings during the summer because they want to pursue their own kind of course of study to move towards their goals. So that's also been a big push at the high school level, is to integrate more of these pathways directly into community college that gives students more ownership around the outcomes.
As someone who has been in education many years, it is amazing to see where students are able to go given that flexibility. So for me, it would be ideal to have this opportunity for everyone, having this even playing field where students can move according to their potential and not what's offered to them. They can navigate a system that allows them to reach those academic and social potentials. Círculos is a fabulous idea because not only are you dealing with the academic component, but you're also dealing with those social economic barriers. And that is, to me, that is what this flexible learning opportunity provides students. It's the opportunity to reach their potential and experience things that normally wouldn't be afforded to them.
We have to put the tools in the hands of students and teachers that allow them to maximize their learning opportunities. And I think that one of the things that we're learning is that there's no silver bullet approach to what that is. I think that when you create the environment where you can design according to the students' needs, that maximizes their potential to be engaged, to learn, to accelerate their learning. And so when you ask about a vision, I really see a portfolio of options based on the preferences, interests, learning modalities of the students. For some of those students, it might be a program like Circulos, where they're not in a traditional school campus. They're out there learning in the real world. They're getting their traditional coursework through a completely online environment, and that really is exciting for them. For other students, it may be a more blended approach where they're working within a classroom, but they're being able to accelerate according to their skill set based on different options that they're being afforded in the classroom. They're being able to move forward or get intervention where they need it. And then I think you'll also have a group of students who they're probably in lockstep with the teacher who's really pushing them to maximize their learning and is working hard with them to push them to maximize that learning time. And so I think that my interest is building a system that has these different options so that based on the student needs, the teacher needs, you're being able to engage students authentically and move them forward with their learning.